An anonymous user on Tumblr asked me, what's your view on the overrating of Kurt Cobain following his suicide? First and foremost, I'm going to assume you're referring to that line that came up so often where they said Kurt Cobain was the John Lennon of his generation. That was just garbage that the mass media loved to do because they knew it would sell papers. While both Cobain and Lennon were massive stars in music who were both murdered at a very young age, I think we can all easily agree that there were absolute light years between the two of them on every other level. But on the other side of that coin, there's no question that Kurt Cobain was massively popular before he died. Even before In Utero was released, Nirvana was already headlining many of the biggest music festivals around the world, and there's no question that Kurt Cobain had been tapped to be one of the many spokesmen for his generation in terms of music and culture. So trying to say that he was shot to stardom or made into this massive icon only after his death is doing nothing but ignoring the previous 3 years. Furthermore, this is not something that only applies to the death of Kurt Cobain. Look across the decades. The media loves to create a circus around the death of any famous person, particularly when they die far too young. I mean, am I the only one who remembers the fact that large media outlets were trying to compare Amy Winehouse to Janis Joplin in terms of musical ability? You want to talk about overrating and blowing out of proportion? There you go. So I think in the end, anybody who really pays attention and has an understanding of the style of music Kurt Cobain and Nirvana plays will admit the fact that Kurt Cobain was a good guitarist for the type of music he played. Was he the best musician of his generation? Not even close. But was he an icon to his generation? Absolutely. I really don't think he was overrated at any point in his career. I think he was oversaturated by the media. Another anonymous Tumblr user asked me, who do you think were the most influential women of the past century of music? When it comes to women in music from a historical perspective, I think you're just lying to yourself if you start anywhere but Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith. Long before the rise of recorded music, these two, among others, were setting the standard for female vocalists. Soon after that, you get the well-known brilliance of women like Billie Holiday, June Carter, Ella Fitzgerald, and so many others that took the world by storm during the rise of jazz. The reason I set these three women apart is because if you read into their personal histories, you'll find out that they were making all sorts of revolutionary movements behind the scenes in their personal lives. Jumping ahead a few decades, I think if you want to know about the more modern role of women in music, you need to look at people like Nina Simone, Janis Joplin, and Aretha Franklin, as there's an authority, a presence within their singing that you really don't find before then. But in my opinion, the most influential woman on the current state of music across the board came around in the 1970s, and that was Patti Smith. She seemed to make it her mission to completely smash down any inequalities, whether it be visually, artistically, vocally, you name it. And I honestly believe that every single woman in the current music scene owes a huge debt to Patti Smith for her revolutionary work. I think it's her presence that leads directly to Joan Jett, Madonna, all across the board. And from those two, you get everybody who's performing today, for better or for worse. As far as female performers that influenced me on a personal level, I think it all goes back to Debbie Harry from Blondie, and I can't think I'm alone in that reality. From there, I found favorites in Liz Phair, Bjork, Tanya Donnelly, L7, Tori Amos, along with some lesser known but equally amazing talents like Polly Styrene from X-Ray Spex, Estero, Kazu Makino, and I will certainly always have a soft spot for the one and only Martha Reeves. These are all combined with all of those women I mentioned in the first half, and there's no question, without their extensive contributions all across the last century, you just don't get modern music in its current form. Finally, Max on Tumblr asked me, can you say one nice thing about Dave Matthews Band? Let me think about it. Yeah, I can absolutely say one nice thing about Dave Matthews Band.